Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Monday. It's April the 20th. This will be a chart lesson for today. And as you noticed, there was no chart lesson Friday. I'm going to probably take off some Fridays here and there. I may do some on Friday over the summer, but during the summer, I'm going to take more Fridays off on doing the videos. Uh, I'll probably still trade on Fridays, but after my trading, I'll probably call it a day and just enjoy a longer weekend. Just depends on the weather, most likely. Probably if the weather's not good, I may hang around and still do a chart lesson. But if you don't see one on Friday, don't wait around on it because there may not be one coming. So um, I've mentioned that a couple of times, but I probably will continue to mention it until people get used to it. So because I usually do one 5 days a week, and I probably will once the summer's over. But just something for me, spend some more time with my family and enjoy why I became a trader because of the um, ability to take off when you want to. So I hope that makes sense. But anyway, let's talk about the trades today. Um, I saw the blue channel here. It's kind of a spike up or a jump up. It's actually a gap and and channel here, gap and or you can call it a spiking channel, whatever you want to call it. But there's actually two gaps on this chart. There's the gap on the 24-hour chart, which is much rarer than actually the other gap, which is a gap between the previous day's close and the 8:30 open, regular session open, which is right here. So there's either way you looked at this, there's a gap. So the market was pretty strong early, but it didn't last for very long. Maybe an hour and a half after the open, it was pretty much all downhill from it. It's pretty much nothing happening. The volume was pretty good, but prices just didn't go anywhere. So, but notice the red or the somewhat lighter color brown there. A couple of people asked me about that, and it looks pretty good. I'm not going to say it's wrong. I think you really get to the same place either way. Although if you're following the blue one, which is, I got it off the first few bars, and it tend to hold, it tend to hold the rest of the morning until you got the break, the move to a new high, and then we were downhill all day till you got a little break and a new low. And if you did look at the brown one, notice that we had the break, and it attempted to make a new high, but it couldn't, and then sold off. I mean, there's some fairly strong. I don't have my line on there, but there's some really strong resistance across there, and you needed to be aware of that. You can see prices turning down off that multiple times. So um, I always tell people put your lines on there. It really helps to see it, and it's really helpful to know that you just almost can't go long in any of this stuff. I'm more apt to go short here than long, although I'm not really interested in going long until we had this little breakout pullback short here. And even then, I almost wanted to make that one green, but but it actually broke higher and then turned and went lower. So it was time for, and I was looking for a reversal anyway. And I think maybe there's people saw it both ways. I don't know, but this 2100 area has been pretty tough to, we've gotten through it a few times, but it doesn't last but just a day or so, and we sell off usually. And I expect that we'll continue to test it on both sides for a little while before we finally find a direction. So, but if you saw the red one, you still get to the same place almost. Um, you might have gotten tricked into entering right here, but if you're paying attention to this little channel, you shouldn't have gotten tricked regardless. Although there is a really small little doji right there, I think that one would have worked if you took that trade. Um, and I really wanted to circle that one anyway, but uh, so it just depends on how you were looking at it. I mean, I'll actually go ahead and circle that one green. I was a little weary of it because I was looking at the break in the new high, and I was afraid that we may continue to work lower. So um, I do believe you had enough room there to get out. Um, it didn't. Notice it's a little bit of a. It's hard to see there. Let me back out. Notice that there's a small doji there, but it closed almost on its very low. So it's even though it's small and it's low risk. One, two, three. Yeah, it would have worked if you would have taken that trade. But I didn't really look at the red one until somebody else asked me about it. So I considered it, but early on, but it didn't fit early on. And then by the time, you know, somebody else asked me about it again, and I took a second look at it, it didn't really matter by that time. So, but anyway, let's talk about the trades. Um, I didn't really see a lot of trades until I mean, there weren't a lot of trades today, period. If you got in here early, this one was kind of tempting, but you needed a better bar, and then the next bar was not much. Everything kept closing down, so I felt like you needed to wait on a second entry here. And if you did, there was no trade. So, and there's actually a shorter term. Show you this in case you didn't see it. Notice the break here, the move to a new high, and then it sold off. And so for that reason, I definitely was leery about entering here on another first entry. Although if you look at coming down, we had a break of it and a move to a new low. So, but you're better off to wait on the second entry. Um, Even though this thing actually broke higher here first and then turned down, and then it went higher again and turned down again. So this one was really, really tempting. If you got stuck in this when this bar closed right here, I would have exited on this one and taken what it would give me, break even or a tick or even minus a tick, because this thing should have gone on like it did here if it was going to go higher. Uh, but I didn't like taking either one of those. So, but let's back up a little bit. I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a little trading range right here. This is a failed break lower. It does bounce off that possible trend line. So I like going long right there. You can see there's one leg, a little correction, then a measured leg here. It's pretty much a measured leg from this first move, and this is a nice bullish inside bar coming off this trend line. So I kind of like that one. It was good for a scalp, and then it backs up again, and then it gives you another bounce right off that trend line, a nice bullish bar. And notice how it couldn't close outside the trend line. So I liked going long there. That's a second entry counting off the lows. And there's really a second entry off the high too, because this high is a little bit higher than that one. So it's pullback first entry, pullback second entry. And so it's second entry a couple of different ways. So I like that entry. And this one turned out to be a pretty nice trade. And if you caught it, you probably could have ridden the runners all the way to whenever you got the break or the new high or however you wanted to play it. Um, and then, of course, we got the next pullback. But I already explained that I was waiting on a second entry off the lows because I didn't like this signal bar here. And it just never came. So if you took this, you were probably risking it. If it would have just backed up and then turned up, I probably would have liked it. It didn't necessarily have to come off this trend line, but notice if you draw your little short-term trend line, you get a break, but you never even get an attempt at a low, really. So it's just a little bit risky. And once we started going higher, I would have been looking for a couple of different things. At first, I would have looked for this, for a measured move here. And you can see we got that and then corrected. But you really have to measure from that gap as well. And then the correction comes right there. And you can see that is pretty much the high of the day. If it's not right on, it's within a tick or so. It's within a couple of ticks. So you got to account for that gap because that's still part of the move up. So I usually measure it both ways. And see, and then pay a real close attention to the first one. But if we keep going higher, then I'm looking for the second one. And that gives you a little bit of courage to stay in this trade a little bit longer, trying to make that new high. Plus, you're looking for a new high anyway. On a strong move, you're likely to get a new high. It's very, I know a lot earlier last week, and that's what fools people is they get locked into what's happened a few days in a row. We had a few days where we couldn't make a new high after a break. But it's not normally like that. Normally prices will follow the rules, but we had a week there where it didn't follow the rules very closely. So at least it didn't follow the rules very closely as far as a break and getting a new high. But that's because in the end they were really range kind of days. And even though this didn't trend much past lunchtime, it's still I'd consider this a trend day because it opened It gapped open and continued up for most of the days. I mean, really till 2 o'clock. The sell-off didn't start till 2 o'clock because we came back and tested that same high again right there into the 2 o'clock hour. So I would consider this a up day, even though a lot of it was flat. Um, but anyway, back to the trades. So I would be very leery of this trade, and then we get the correction here. Um, and we talked about this one. You did have a break. This one was really tempting, but it went higher first and then went lower. And so I think you got to wait. And so then you get another one here. But again, wait on that trap or second entry, and then you get that little push lower. And so that gives you a trap and a little lower high. And so that's a second entry right there. I like that one. And it takes off, and then you get another little, even though, and notice this is a failed second entry short. Notice the new low, pull back first entry, pull back second entry. So it's a failed second entry short. Um, there's really two legs in there. So if you went to a little smaller chart, there's a little two-legged correction. So it's a second entry long off the high count if you're looking at a much smaller chart. So there are a couple of reasons. Notice how we got back above the EMA. It came back and tested it a few times, and every time it bounced. We're probably going for a new high right there. And you probably did want to wait on that bar, although, I really liked going long above that one. And you may have had a slightly different bar because that's one tick that could have closed simply up based on timing on the tick chart, and it could look a little bullish. It could have closed on its very high. So, I mean, it easily could have closed on its very high. So, and you may have had a better looking bar than that on yours, but I like it regardless because it's a failed second entry short and a trap. And those don't fail very often, especially when you're looking for prices. And there's always all these people that are trying to catch a high up here, and they're going to get trapped most of the time, and it's going to go make that new high. And that's what happened here. And this was a great trade. Quick, easy move that just shot straight up. And if you wait until you exit to the first bar that turns lower, you get out within two ticks of the high of the day. And you can't do much. You can't do any better than that. So then we just went into this. There's a second entry right here, but it didn't trigger. And then the next bar, by the time the next bar triggered, then it backs up, and then you get another one, and it's just not a good second entry there. Plus, you've got a break and a new high. But that doesn't mean that you can't attempt to go long one more time, because sometimes you'll get, this might actually be the first leg. This looks like two legs up, but it could be one bigger leg, and you get another leg up. And I always tell people, they think, well, we got a new high, we can go short now. That's not the case. Because you don't always even get a reversal. This correction would have been good enough for us to start higher and keep working higher the rest of the day. The rules tell you that once you get a break and a new high and you start your correction, that it's just that, a correction. It doesn't necessarily mean a reversal. And a correction can just be a sideways action that gets stuck in a little range or even a bigger range or whatever. And this is really two tiers here. If you measure them, they're two measured legs there for the two measured tiers there. You can see that. But yeah, you don't always get a reversal. You sometimes get a correction, but you don't always know either when this is going to end. It usually helps to draw the trend line, and that gives you some clue, the shorter term trend line. Notice we did get a close and on that and a couple of legs up. But sometimes you'll get one more push after a little correction here for this one. And so you can't go short until you get a confirmed trend line in the other direction, or you get some kind of trap. And you really got that right in here. But by this time, it's obvious that you're just going back and forth, and it's just a trading range. So just stay out of that. The only thing you might have entered was long here and then short here. And this one I was not even crazy about, because look where you're going short, right into that stuff. But notice that there's a channel working down too, and we got the break, and so you figure we're going to get a new low. So I somewhat like that one. Plus, we've tested this high twice more. It fails. It did break higher first and then go low. I was real close to whether I want to make that one green or red, but if you were paying attention and you were expecting a reversal and you see this little channel working down, then you're probably thinking, hey, short right here. And then, of course, we got two legs down. You got You got a new low, first entry pullback. There's a failed second entry short right there. There's not a good short there to begin with. This is where you always look what your signal bar is green, bullish, and then you get a doji, and so there's just no reason to go short there. And so just wait and see if you don't get a failure and get a chance to go long, and that's what happens. And you do have your break of this little channel, a new low. You do have a measured, two measured legs down based on, or a measured channel width down, and so there's plenty of reasons to be thinking you can't go short right in here. Just sit tight, and if you get a long, take the long. And that was pretty much it today. So really there's only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades that I like. This got you into the 2 o'clock hour, of course, so after that, I don't like entering after that. I think it's too risky. It's too late in the day. So other than these two being a possible green, and you see this is a good example of why you don't necessarily want to take this trade, because you see these first entries will fail sometimes, because generally you're going to get 2 legs, and so you got 1 leg, a little 2-legged correction, then another leg, and it fails and goes higher. And so you really need a second entry unless it's a really strong day, and this is looking pretty strong. But this didn't go far enough before it started finding resistance. Notice there's a double top here, and that's another reason. There is room to get out. So if you got sucked into this trade, the fact that it went higher first above that little doji and then turned down, that's the main reason I didn't like it. But if you got sucked into that trade, when it started hanging up across there, I would probably exit. I would not hang on to it, because you got to realize, you got to assume you probably got fooled. And I mean, that's what they try to do. They fool you and enter in the wrong direction, and you do that, and then they reverse it. And that's what happened here to a lot of shorts that took this, and they got fooled, and they really got fooled again right there, and then it takes off, but they don't really give up. They're probably using this for their high before they give up, and look what happens when it shoots above. It hits all their stops, and it runs real quick, and then it runs out of steam again, and it gets tied up again. So just keep that in mind. But not a lot of trades today. Again, you might circle those 2 as green, but if you circle this one as green, you probably had a loser there. I don't see you getting out of that much more than break even at best. Maybe a tick if you're lucky, but probably break even, because once it started to go higher here, you're going to try to be convinced to hang on, and especially when it closes right there on the line and can't get through again. So you're probably going to hang on and move just enough to stop you out and then go exactly where you thought it was going to go before. Just be patient. You might miss one like this waiting on that second entry, but I would rather miss this trade than get stuck in this trade right here when you know there's some more coming along soon. So I hope this is actually a good example today of why I don't like these first entries, because you'll get burned on them. So anyway, that's about all we got for today. So I'm going to wrap it up. I hope you had a good weekend. I hope you're ready for another trading week, and we'll be back again to do it tomorrow. But this is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.